Sam McKewon with the Omaha World-Herald, Big Red Today, and Omaha.com. And for our Sunday story this week, we decided to rank the position groups in Nebraska's program. We separated them out into 8. We tried to make it 8 as opposed to 10. We probably could have went with 10. We went with 8. And they are running back, special teams, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, offensive line, defensive back, and linebackers. It's probably a little big on the wide receiver tight end side, but didn't want to just isolate the tight ends as one guy, two guys. We wanted to kind of break it in, lump those together a little bit. So we thought we would go through the rankings of those position groups as Nebraska heads into the offseason. Probably not getting a ton more departures via the transfer portal. We've had a couple, might have one or two more, but I anticipate Demarion Houston and Jamie Nance and Kurt Raftel, who left during spring camp, and of course just recently Ronald Tompkins. There might be a couple more, but there's probably not going to be a ton of departures. So we thought we'd rank those position groups going into the offseason. This can change, obviously, if Nebraska adds a transfer somewhere in there or if somebody gets hurt over the summer. You never want to see that happen, but of course sometimes it does. People might remember Chris Jones, for example, getting hurt one year in the offseason, and that hurt their chances, obviously, in the defensive backfield. So those things do happen, and we'll go through the rankings. I put it into 3 categories actually, where you would kind of have the ranking, and that would just be overall talent, and then returning experience, and then depth, and then I kind of have a verdict at the end of it. But the talent piece, obviously, is just, what kind of players are these guys when they were coming out of high school or coming out of junior college? Returning experiences, how experienced are they? And of course, depth takes into account the number of players at that position and how healthy that they've been. We'll go worst to first, and worst is not where we really want to do it, but the group that has to do the most work to the group that seems to me to be in the best shape heading into the offseason. Number 8 is running backs. Makes total sense there, right? Even though Tompkins left, they still have 5 scholarship running backs, and then Jacques Yant is a 6th player. He's a freshman, but not a lot of proven stuff there. The transfer they brought in, Marquise Stepp, he was hurt all in spring, and we're not sure when he's going to be back. The USC transfer has 100 career carries in college football. That's not a ton. The next most is Ramir Johnson at 29, and then Marvin Scott at 24. This is a unproven position, and it's quite possible that a true freshman, Gabe Ervin, might be the starter in the fall, which just speaks to how much work that this group has to do. Very rarely is a true freshman going to come on the scene and just be a dominant player. So we'll see where Nebraska goes with it, but that group has a lot of work to do, a lot of depth, but not much experience and not much proven production. Number 7 is special teams. And, the Big Ten kicker of the year, Connor Culp, is back. He did a pretty good job of place kicking last season. At the same time, this is a group that needs to find a consistent punter between Daniel Cherney and William Pristup. Incidentally, there's a guy from Michigan who's in the transfer portal, Will Hart. I don't know if Nebraska would pursue him or not. Probably not, since they have so many. Connor Culp's a pretty good place kicker, pretty accurate within 40 yards, but not a great kickoff guy, and they have to try to find one of those. It's possible that Kellen Meyer, who's from Ord, is somebody that might be able to help them out. He's coming in as a freshman. I think he's going to be in the Shrine Bowl, so maybe we'll see what he can do there. But that's a group that's really unproven, either in punting and in kickoff. And then the return units, Cam Taylor-Britt had a couple of nice returns on punt returns last season, but of course Nebraska gave up 2 fake punts, and then Taylor-Britt fumbled a punt, muffed a punt at Iowa. And the kickoff return unit was not solid last season at all. They really struggled in that department, as Alante Brown only averaged 19.6 yards per return. So if Connor Culp wasn't there, they might be 8th, but he is there. So that's a nice piece to have. It's better than what Nebraska was dealing with in 2019. 6 is wide receiver and tight end. And yeah, maybe this is a little low based on the tight ends being pretty proven with Travis Vokalek and Austin Allen. But the wide receiver group was not great last year. We have to be honest about that. Wan'Dale Robinson was the best player on that unit, and he transferred to Kentucky. And so while they have lots of talent, lots of 4-star guys like Oliver Martin and Xavier Betts and Omar Manning, those guys have to actually prove it on the field. And even if Frost and Lubick are comfortable with what they have there, we'll wait until the season actually begins to see if they prove it against Illinois and at least early in the season, Illinois and Fordham and Buffalo and then Oklahoma. We'll see how they are through those first 4 games. It'll be interesting to see how they manage and who rises to the top and so on and so forth. At tight end, Nebraska is pretty solid, but the most talented player, Thomas Fidone, got hurt and probably won't play at least the beginning of the 2021 season. Number 5 is quarterback, and Adrian Martinez may very well be the best quarterback in the Big Ten. I don't consider that unlikely. Obviously, he may not have the best stats; those will probably belong to the Ohio State quarterback, whoever that is. But Adrian Martinez might be one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and yet this is still number 4 for me because of the lack of proven depth. Logan Smothers and Heinrich Harburg just, they've never played a college snap. And that wasn't the case in 2020 when Luke McCaffrey was returning to play, and it wasn't the case when Noah Vedral was here. And so they had some really good situations, I would say, at quarterback in 2019 and 2020 because they had a little bit of depth. This year, it's hard to tell how good Smothers or Harburg would be because they just haven't done much in a football game. Martinez himself has to stay healthy, and that's not been something that he's consistently done really since high school. I mean, he missed a year of high school football because of an injury, and then he missed games in 2018 and 2019, a couple of plays in 2020. So that quarterback spot could go up to number 2 by the end of the season. But right now, given the depth issues, it's at number 5. Number 4 is defensive back, and some people might have that higher. I don't, not because they don't have returning experience. They do. They have multi-year starters in Cam Taylor-Britt and Deontay Williams and Markel Dismuke. They don't have a ton of depth. They don't. Quentin Newsom will probably be the corner opposite Cam Taylor-Britt. Behind him, Braxton Clark, maybe. I think he's probably going to be back. And then Miles Farmer and Noah Pola-Gates at safety. And that's about the limit of their proven production. And, sometimes safeties and corners, they get hurt. It's a violent position that safeties play, 1. And 2, there can be targeting penalties, which Nebraska got last year. And so I still think there's a little ways for that group to go. I know Travis Fisher says they want to be the number 1 secondary in the country this year. Maybe they will be. And then, this ranking will be proven wrong. But I think they probably need 1 or 2 more guys to kind of emerge, whether those are walk-ons or transfers, to feel really, really comfortable about their depth. The health has to be, paramount there, just like at quarterback. The talent is there, but we'll see where they go with depth and health. And so there's a little bit more to see at that position. Some people may think I have the offensive line too high at number 3, but I put a high premium on talent, and this group is talented. There isn't any question. Turner Corcoran is a high 4-star. Bryce Benhardt's a high 4-star. Cam Jurgens is a high 4-star, albeit a tight end, but now it's center. It's a talented bunch. This is a talented group of linemen, and they're deep. They might be able to play 10 different guys. They've added 2 walk-ons who may become scholarship players down the road, and Nordin Nwili and Ezra Miller, who are really helpful. And then on top of that, they've got a lot of depth, and they've got a lot of seasoning. Now, nobody's going to say that Bryce Benhardt is the most experienced player in the country, but he has a full season of starting under his belt, and he's still a redshirt freshman. Ethan Piper's the same way. Cam Jurgens enters his 3rd year of starting at Nebraska. And so there's some really, really positive developments on that line. I suspect they're going to be a lot better this season. I know that seems counterintuitive with Brendan Hymas and Matt Farniok leaving, but remember what's behind them. And I think there's a lot of talent there. I think it's going to be a talented, highly competitive group where you might please see 7 or 8 players playing. Number 2 is linebacker. I like where Nebraska's situation is at linebacker, even with the injury of Will Honus. I like where Nebraska's at. Now, in this, I include Garrett Nelson. I consider him an outside linebacker and not really a defensive end. And so Nelson is the outside linebacker, as is JoJo Doman, as is Caleb Tanner. They need to add 1 more piece to that bunch, and I think it'll be Feldarius Payne, and I think he's going to have a good season. He had a pretty good season last year, and he was banged up. At inside linebacker, I know Nebraska really likes its situation. They have Luke Reimer, Chris Kolarvik, and Nick Henrich. That's probably your trio if Honus isn't able to come back healthy. And then you plug in a Garrett Snodgrass there. And then remember, they're bringing in a whole new group of linebackers. Seth Malcolm and Randolph Kapai joined the program early, but you're going to get Wyndon Huahuli and Makai Bayer this summer. And so this is a really competitive deep group of players. I think this is one position where Nebraska was hot and cold in the Big Ten era. Once Levante David and Will Compton left, they just didn't have players that were commensurate to those qualities. And now they've got a little bit more depth, and I think they're going to kind of rise to the top. I don't know that anybody's going to be first team All Big Ten this year, but I think Doman has a chance to be, and I think a guy like Kolarvik or Reimer has a chance to be second team All Big Ten. And so I think Nebraska's linebacker group is really good. Defensive line is number one, and some of this is because, hey, they're only playing about 3 guys at a time, but they're really deep. They have at least 6 that they really trust. They'll probably get to 7 or 8. The young guys on the roster, the Nash Hutmakers of the world, don't have to play that much, and that's a good thing. If you look at what they've got, Ty Robinson, Casey Rogers, Damian Daniels, Ben Stilley, DeAndre Thomas, and then you add Jordan Riley in that probably as a 6th guy, then Colton Feast, that's 7, and then Nash comes in, that's 8. That's a pretty good setup. You don't necessarily have to play Ruquan Buckley much. I think they really like the kind of player he is. And then there's the mystery man, Jalen Weaver, who comes this summer. Nobody really knows much about him. We've been trying to get a hold of him, and it's not always an easy thing to do. So I think this is a group that they really, really like, and I think they're going to stop the run. I don't know that there's a guy in that bunch that's going to have 8 tackles for loss or 5 sacks, but I do think they're going to be tough to run on. And this is probably the first time that I feel like Nebraska's had a defensive line really since 2015, when they had Malik Collins and Vincent Valentine, that I've really felt like they could get stout and just kind of push teams back. And so I think this defensive line can get that done. They're slim, they're trim, I think they're athletic, and you don't have to ask too much of any one player. You're not going to have a situation where Mick Stoltenberg's out there on half a leg, half a wheel, trying to gut it out. I think if somebody gets banged up, you can bring them out and put somebody else back in. So that's a really good situation for Nebraska. Bodes well for Nebraska's run defense, right? That the linebackers and the defensive line are number 1 and 2 in my position ranking. I think Nebraska's going to have a really good run defense in 2021. Pass defense, we'll see. And then on the offensive side, it's going to come down to whether or not those running backs can turn the corner and whether Martinez has enough guys to throw to. I suspect that he will. All right, Husker fans, check out the story on Sunday in the Omaha World-Herald. Thanks a lot.